I have the privilege this morning of reading what I think is one of the most beautiful parts of a psalm that is in the Bible. Psalm 36, 5 through 10. But your loyal love, Lord, extends to the skies. Your faithfulness reaches the clouds. Your righteousness is like the strongest mountains. Your justice is like the deepest sea. Lord, you save both humans and animals. Your faithful love is priceless, God. Humanity finds refuge in the shadow of your wings. They feast on the bounty of your house. You let them drink from your river of pure joy. With you is the spring of life. In your light, we see light. Extend your faithful love to those who know you. Extend your righteousness to those whose heart is with you. Amen.
You're right, Kate. You're right, Kate. It is a really beautiful psalm. There are many others that fit that category, but there are phrases in this one that are just really kind of tug at your heart. But the question of the sermon title, what is God's love like, comes from all the different references to God's love that are in this psalm. But what a ridiculous sentence to ask, a question to ask, right? It's easy in some ways to answer the question, what is God's love like? But it's also hard. I mean, anyone that you ask who has some sort of abiding faith in God can answer that question, what do you think God's love is like? Because most of us can come up with some words or phrases or moments that we have felt God's love in our lives. And it's kind of what the kid said a minute ago, like the wag of a dog's tail when you come home after a day at work. That's God's love in your life, right? The laughter of a baby, the lullaby of a mother, the majesty of the mountains when you can see them. And I guess the majesty of knowing that they're there, even when you can't, when you're sucked in by fog. The crash of an ocean wave. There are all kinds of lovely natural world and human world metaphors that answer the question of what is God's love like. People, animals, places that helps lead us to a little piece of what we think God's love might be like. And the adult Sunday school class is looking at the social principles of the United Methodist Church, and the two on the table for today are the natural world and the nurturing community, which is basically the human world. And I was thinking of this psalm as I was reading through some of those social principles. There are all kinds of hot button social issues. You can imagine the categories. But knowing that God's love permeates them all makes it a little easier to recognize, even in the disagreements and the debate that you know went through creating that document, knowing that God's love is in all circumstances and in all situations. The psalmist is doing the same thing this week. It says that the love of God extends to the skies. The faithfulness of the Lord reaches to the clouds. It says the righteousness is as far-reaching as the mountaintop, justice as deep as the sea. This psalm also sings a song. Remember, the psalms are written to be sung. It sings this love song that's not just for humans, but also is very careful to mention along with it the animals. God is also in love with the animals. And I love the phrase in this psalm that describes God's love as being like a mother hen who protects her brood under her wing, and a river of pure joy that we're able to drink from. There are very, very few psalms that would have such wonderful descriptions of the love of God than you find in Psalm 36. God's love is as wide as the sky and deep as the sea. God's love is for all of us, even the animals, maybe especially the animals. God's love is like a mother. God's love is like a swiftly flowing but all the same inviting stream. And yet, the words that we're using to describe God's love here shows you just how undefinable the concepts of God and love are. So undefinable that it's almost hard to get to the core of this psalm's message, because we're forced into using metaphors like oceans and mountains to describe love. How could anyone really possibly describe God's love? And yet, as the children pointed out, and as all of you have in your own minds right now, there are many examples of things that you know of God's love in your life. I know Catherine brought her dog last week, right? Because you wanted Tula to experience God's love in this place, which is important. You know, when a dog is old and failing in health, and that's what Kay's facing with her dog right now too, you want nothing more than to wrap them in a blanket of holy and sacred love, and that's what we do. And you know people, and maybe you've done it yourself, that do that with the people that you love in your life that are in their final days. You know, you wash clothes and do dishes and run errands and hold hands, and all the while dumping buckets of tears, waiting and watching for that person to slip into the next life. Bringing whatever light into their darkness that you can in this time of pain and distress. That's another example of a far-reaching, all-encompassing God love. A God's love that surpasses all our understanding. Psalm 36 is that they feast on the abundance of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your delights. My friend Emily lived in Germany for a dozen or so years, and while she was there, she went to a Methodist church, and she found herself on one occasion with the pastor visiting a young men's maximum security prison outside of Munich. They discovered while they were there that most of the inmates were teenage boys and young men in their early 20s. And the pastor, who had teenage boys of her own, said, "These could be my boys." And the prison's chaplain said, "No, they couldn't be your boys, because your boys had you as a mother." In this phrase, this really short sentence that this chaplain made is the key to understanding exactly how God's love works in this world. Because God's love is wider than the sky and deeper than the sea, but if we as humans don't show love to one another or to our animal friends, they lose the chance to experience that love. God's love requires human hearts and human souls, animal hearts and animal souls, to pour it out on one another. These poor boys weren't lucky enough, possibly, to have a mom who loves them, is what this chaplain was saying. Or maybe they did have a mom that loved them unconditionally, but they were unable to accept her love because they didn't love themselves. The psalmist says, "How precious is your steadfast love, O God, all people may take refuge in the shadow of your wings." Everyone actually understands the concept of far-reaching, wide-embracing love, but not everyone has been able to feel it. It might be because they don't accept love in themselves. It might be because they feel so unworthy in the eyes of those around them. And so sometimes people make bad choices and wrong turns are made. All kinds of things happen to create an atmosphere where God's love is not shown or received in the way it could be. And we as a society live lives of injustice much of the time. We don't follow the right path into loving one another because of prejudices or inborn things that we've learned from our earliest days, that people are somehow not worthy of the same things we are, or not deserving of the same things we are. This is Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. We all know that legacy of slavery and injustice that still permeates in our own world, in our own surroundings, even on this day, on this weekend. I found my copy of Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail that he writes in a jail cell to his fellow clergymen. So every time I take a look at this, I usually do it around this time every year, I realize that, he's speaking to people like me when he writes this letter. People who talked a good talk but didn't necessarily walk the good walk of really being on the front lines with those fighting for justice. Just a few words from that letter. So the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be. Will we be extremists for hate or for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice or for the extension of justice? In that dramatic scene on Calvary's Hill, 3 men were crucified. We must never forget that all 3 of them were crucified for the same crime, the crime of extremism. 2 were extremists for immorality and thus fell below their environment. The other, Jesus Christ, was an extremist for love, truth, and goodness, and thereby rose above his environment. Perhaps the South, the nation, and the world are in dire need of creative extremists. Let us all hope that the dark clouds of racial prejudice will soon pass away, and the deep fog of misunderstanding will be lifted from our fear-drenched communities, and in some not too distant tomorrow, the radiant stars of love and brotherhood will shine over our great nation with all their scintillating beauty. Yours for the cause of peace and brotherhood, Martin Luther King Jr. And we still have so far to go to reach that nation with its scintillating beauty. Still have so far to go to pour God's love into the world as we should. We aren't to leave people in their time of loneliness or despair or self-loathing. We aren't to leave people in their time and need for justice. In fact, that is the very time that we are called most to share this all-encompassing love of God. Because God can't share that love with the world alone. God requires humankind that God created in God's image to pour that love into the world, to love the world as God so loves it. The great British actor Alan Rickman died on Thursday at age 69 of cancer. A lot of people died this week of cancer, actually. Rickman was famous for many roles. He played the villain Hans Gruber in the Die Hard movie, you might remember. He was in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Truly Madly Deeply, Sense and Sensibility is a good role for him. But he became beloved in my life when he became Severus Snape, professor of Harry Potter in the Harry Potter series. He played the role like it was written especially for him, and at the end of the series, though he had seemed to be a villain all along, he becomes the one who shows some of the most beautiful examples of unconditional love. You see, Professor Snape had fallen in love with Harry's mom long ago and had loved her since childhood. It was a love that he kept mostly to himself, and her life went a different direction from his, but because of that deep and abiding love, he protected her child, Harry, after Harry's mother was killed. Snape worked behind the scenes without being truly loved by anyone, working a very solitude existence, living a very lonely life, putting up a facade to protect Harry. In the end, he cries tears that end up revealing to Harry what Snape's real journey has been, the path he took, the lengths that he went in order to save Harry without praise, without honor, with great sacrifice. Alan Rickman played this role so well that we were all left in tears when he gives his life for Harry near the end of the movie series. Rickman's surprising death this week, along with the other celebrities who passed, reminded me that life is fleeting and that we have but one life to pour our souls into making a difference in the world. We can't make a difference tomorrow. It starts today. We have but one life to show as much of God's love as we possibly can to everyone we can, including our animal friends and all of creation. Your righteousness is like the mighty mountains. Your judgments are like the great deep, O God. But I can come up with all different examples and stories all day long, but nothing truly gets at the heart of the matter of God's abundant love mightier than the mountains, greater than the deep. Like that story of the incarnate God who comes to us in the Son Jesus. That's the story that explains God's all-encompassing love. That's the one. That story, no matter how many others you might hear, will always be the perfect one to explain the true depths and heights of God's love. God so loved the world that God poured God's self out into Jesus. Jesus so loved the world that he walked among sinners, spreading a message of hope and peace, sharing a message of, you're included, yes, all of you. God who came to us in Jesus was willing to walk that whole long and dark path from the garden of tears to the arrest, to the trial, to the cross, to the tomb. Because God so loved the world. You know, it's that old praise song you remember. You came from heaven to earth to show the way. From the earth to the cross, my debt to pay. From the cross to the grave. From the grave to the sky. Lord, I lift your name on high. God pouring out the abundant love through Jesus. That abundant love through Jesus that would create a new heaven and a new earth right here and right now. And that's what we are asked to give too, as hard and as amazing as it might seem. That's the kind of love we are asked to share. That's the kind of love that Martin Luther King Jr. was seeking in that letter to the Birmingham jail, and from the Birmingham jail, and in every single instance of that civil rights journey, that kind of love for humankind that we still seek or should be seeking for the oppressed everywhere. The kind of love that makes a pastor recognize that the prisoners she's visiting are actually her children too. The kind of love that God pours into the world in Jesus, who walks the loneliest of possible walks to do this mighty deed of saving the world. Our instructions in this psalm today are pretty clear. God is singing to us this love song so profound that it's easy to think it's impossible for us to live up to it. Why should we bother? It's too complicated. What difference can I make? But the message will continue to ring in our ears without fail until we move into action to create love and justice and mercy in the world. We may as well go ahead and try to heed its call. Go, love, deeply, passionately, widely, everyone, no exceptions, always.